If I sound a little droggy, that's my migraine. Ignore it. Also, as a friendly reminder, I would like to mention that we only have 24 hours before I turn off the award show voting document. So if you haven't voted or you still want to vote some more, just go to the link that I'll put in the pinned comment so you can vote. But 24 hours from when this video is uploaded, I will turn it off. And to those of you who've already participated, a big thank you. I'm starting off with a strong disclaimer here. If the self-love culture has helped you in your journey of growth and self-discovery and it's something that you hold in high regard, please resist the urge to write me a 5-page essay with more effort than you put in your school assignments to tell me about it. Not to be rude, but I don't care. Your offense to this video does not help the debate, neither does it add any necessary points to this discussion, so save it. I'd also like to stress that two things can be true at once. The self-love culture has helped plenty of people, even if it is toxic to some degree. I believe that applies to everything. There's a good and a bad side to every culture, so try to remember that me criticizing it doesn't erase the good this movement has done. While we're still discussing that, I'd like to mention that Hwasa will be criticized in this video. That doesn't mean you cannot enjoy her music. God knows I do. It also doesn't mean that she cannot or she has to stop being an inspiration for you. If you find her message and career inspiring, you do not have to stop looking up to her. Neither am I encouraging you to do so in this video. I say this because we're in an era where everyone automatically is expected to drop consuming someone's content just because one YouTuber strongly disagrees with them or something that they did. And I don't believe it should be this way. Thank you. Every once in a couple dozen years, the powers that be, aka those who control this world, introduce a movement to us, usually starting from the West, where they try to convince us that something that isn't necessarily a problem is. Some individuals then make it their life's mission to become advocates for this particular movement, branding themselves as activists. This is where they take up a role that basically involves doing everything that isn't their job description. In other words, force people into submission to accept their ideologies as truths, looming threats of cancellation over their heads if they dare to hold a difference of opinion. These communities pride themselves in refusing to conform to society's labels while making it their job to create a billion other labels to box everyone else in. They go out of their way to purposefully make others uncomfortable, claiming freedom of self-expression, and others go as far as to accept unhealthy and dangerous habits by claiming that this is who they are. They contradict themselves by insisting that they will not change to fit others' demands, but then use social media as a weapon to attack those who decide that they will not change to accommodate them. Insane levels of privilege are evident in the amount of time they waste screaming on social media about the most unnecessary things in life. And if you track back all these toxic behaviors, you'll notice that they root in one particular issue, the issue of self-love. In case you aren't aware of the reason behind this video, should I say a part of it, is that a few months ago, Hwasa was performing at a university festival where she did this. Apparently, the Parents Association, comprised of the parents of the students who attended that festival, were so upset with Hwasa's gesture that they decided to sue her for public indecency. Since then, K-pop stans, mostly international stans, have dragged parents and just about anyone who was unimpressed with Hwasa's behavior, giving them all sorts of names, from prude and old-fashioned to insecure and misogynistic. I was one of those who had an issue with this, not necessarily what she did, but where she did it. I expressed this sentiment in my unpopular opinions video on my second channel that had hundreds of people raging at me, with others claiming that I said things that I clearly didn't. So basically what I deal with on a daily basis, nothing new. In all this ramped up rage while defending Hwasa, including in my comment section, I couldn't help but notice this recurring statement. People just can't stand a confident woman who loves herself and is comfortable in her skin. As someone whose confidence has threatened, pissed off, and downright shattered other people, being told that I was jealous and threatened by someone whom I genuinely admired because of her confidence in the first place was a little bit jarring. The same self-love that I admired in Hwasa was being used against me to back up the claim that I was jealous of the woman. And that made me rethink things a little bit. Now, I'm not insecure about my body, neither am I threatened by Hwasa's, of course, so I knew I had nothing to prove. But it was strange that this movement that was meant to be something beautiful was being used as a weapon against people with a difference of opinion, confirming something that I've feared for a while now. No movement with a good cause ages well. They all just live long enough to become a nuisance. While jotting down points for this video, I was reminded of a conversation my mother and I had months ago where she said, and I quote, "The self-love movement is so hollow that its only purpose in existence is for one to convince the whole world how much they love themselves." To a large degree, it's true. It seems as if the ultimate goal in life these days is self-love and radical acceptance. Literally nothing outside of themselves. That's how shallow people have gotten. The problem with that is that convincing the whole world through social media how much you love yourself is both unfulfilling and exhausting. It's basically signing yourself up for a lifetime performance that no one will give you recognition for, which, by the way, people in this category want more than anything. Literally, they want to be recognized for loving themselves. Terms like radical acceptance have been reinvented to mean tolerating detrimental and unhealthy habits and refusing to change them in the name of self-love. Just accept yourself for who you are, they say. Some people are terrible human beings. Are you sure you want to tell them that? My point is that the self-love right now is not what it was when the movement was created. Now it's just an excuse to be disrespectful and a reason to bash people who have esteem for decorum. Seeing how people reacted to the disapproval of Hwasa's actions is proof that this concept is clearly doing more harm than good. The concept of self-love was incredibly popular in the mid-2010s, even though it actually started way before that. It's part of the fundamental reasons why BTS became as big as they are. They made good music, they debuted at the perfect time, and they had excellent marketing. Part of their genius marketing strategy was to use a concept that was making radical waves on social media and resonating with a lot of young people at that time, and branding themselves as self-love advocates. But better than that, BTS didn't just sing plain old "I love myself, I'm different, I'm unique." No. They went deeper than that. They touched on the not-so-great parts of being a human being, like the state of anxiety and depression, with lyrics that one who's been through those experiences could strongly resonate with. It's part of the reason why I fell in love with their music, apart from the fact that it's just so damn good. And while self-love wasn't exactly new to K-pop music, it kind of became huge, with other groups trying to follow the same model so they can break out in the West. ITZY debuting in 2019 with Dalla Dalla literally shout "I love myself" in the post-chorus, and the whole theme of the song was about accepting themselves and not giving a damn what people thought of them. Throughout the years, their focus has been about being who they are unapologetically, without conforming to the standards people want them to live up to. And that, as great as it looks on paper, is, well, there's just one problem with it. None of these groups who sang about self-love in their music were leading by example. Why preach about self-acceptance when you're constantly changing your body to suit beauty standards, apologizing for offending people over the tiniest little things, and tripping over yourselves to please people who know nothing about you as a person? Aren't those actions the exact opposite of what the concept of self-love stands for? And while there's a fair argument that idols are not role models and that they're just entertainers who don't have to live up to their message, doesn't that just mean that they're taking advantage of a movement that means everything to a lot of people, including the impressionable audiences, and using it for the sake of profit? Nobody wants to admit that about their faves, do they? Not to mention the fact that a lot of the theme of the self-love in K-pop is rather shallow. It doesn't dig deep into the difficult work that one should partake in during that journey to loving themselves. In fact, it just gives off fake it till you make it energy. And again, you could present the argument that music doesn't have to be deep, which is true. But these idols have an impact on the impressionable audience, and their music sends a wrong message about self-love. Loving yourself is a lot of work that includes letting go of bad habits, battling mental health issues, and learning to let go of the need for validation. And that is not achieved by telling the whole world in multiple songs how much you love yourself. And moreover, it is definitely not accomplished by conforming to the court of public opinion, which is something idols literally do on a daily basis. And yes, K-pop is not to blame for the environment that the self-love movement has created, but it adds to the not-so-healthy parts of it. Now that I've laid a little foundation on how K-pop fits into this culture, let's talk about Hwasa, shall we? Hwasa has been hailed strongly over the years for not conforming to the Korean beauty standards, though she does fit well into the Western ones, and nobody wants to discuss that because the story that she's defying all odds is more appealing for the underdog storyline. Over the years, Hwasa has adopted this as her image and her motto, where she constantly tries to convince us how much she loves herself and how little she cares about what we think. I mean, inspiring her fans around the world to accept and love themselves. She's seen as a queen of some sorts for doing something out of the ordinary that is frowned upon by the keyboard warriors of South Korea. Like the time where she didn't wear a bra at the airport and somehow the whole nation decided that it was their business, or when the couch potatoes took to their crusty phone screens to express their disapproval of her wearing a bodysuit at Mama. My point is, for most of her career when she makes headlines, it's always K-nuts losing their shit for something that she did that international stands are hailing her for. And a lot of this worship stems from the fact that K-nuts often lose their mind and criticize her for it. Now, this is not to say that Hwasa doesn't deserve her success, neither does it say that she hasn't worked hard for where she is right now. I mean, she's had agencies tell her that she will never succeed in the industry because of her looks, that her talent is irrelevant, that she was quote-unquote ugly, which, not to be mean, I'd like to see the people who called her that. I doubt I find anything flattering on their faces. Companies considered her too dark, too fat, too curvy, too ugly, the list goes on. But she didn't give up. She let her talent and sexy persona do all the work, and she's become a beloved figure in K-pop. And considering that by Western standards she's seen as attractive, this kind of solidified her as a queen. Modern day K-pop stans were just not used to seeing an idol strongly and openly defy Korean beauty standards like she was doing, and that instantly boosted her popularity amongst them. It's literally like 21 never existed to these people. And like any celebrity, it eventually reached a peak at which anything she did was seen as iconic and queen behavior. Fans started acting like hair flips, and being a foodie and being admired by male idols was exclusive to Hwasa alone. In my previous video where I asked for K-pop confession, someone said that Moomoo's, referring to Mamamoo's fandom, was full of K-pop pygmies, and as cold out as I felt, it's true. It's also true of Revelovs, but you did not hear this from me. We kind of act like good music and vocals and real talent is exclusive to them. And I'm pretty sure that's exactly what happened with Hwasa and this idea of self-love. Because Hwasa was actively defying beauty standards while singing about self-love, she was seen as a pioneer of some sorts because she was doing things that Koreans would consider wrong or bad or disrespectful. And anytime someone would admire, say, Soyeon or any other idol on the topic of self-love, you would find the comments saying, but Mamamoo, but Hwasa. This pedestal came with consequences, of course, because Hwasa was subjected to extremely harsh criticism to the point where it was obvious that she was just being attacked for the sake of it. And when her fans saw that, they wouldn't let it fly. I would also like to stress that this was around the time when K-pop idols were literally taking their own lives due to online hate and harassment, and companies were not putting enough effort to protect them. So fans were kind of taking it upon themselves. Behavior like this, as noble as it sounds, is a massive downfall because these idols will be seen as perfect and genuine criticism will be seen as hate. That is what brings us to this recent incident that partially inspired this video. One of my biggest problems with this movement is that selfishness is no longer seen as a bad thing. I'll preface this by stating that putting yourself first and prioritizing your mental health and physical well-being and things of that like is not what I'm calling selfish. I mean selfish in its original definition, which is having zero consideration for other people around you and having self-profit or self-pleasure as your #1 goal. The lengths those in support of this movement have gone to disrespect other people in the name of loving themselves is rather concerning. This is a big factor to those defending Hwasa's gesture. The #1 argument which I'd like to tackle in her defense was that Hwasa was at an event filled with adults. What's wrong with what she did? Well, two things. #1, not all adults want to be subjected to that. #2, this wasn't her personal event. It was a schooling institution. Half of the people defending her wouldn't have done the same if she was at an upper class or socialite event, or say she was performing in front of the country's political representatives. In fact, that behavior would be the reason why she would never be invited to similar events again. Now, why wouldn't the argument that everyone is just adults fit into these hypothetical situations? It's because it's no longer about the people, but it's about the place and the type of event. When a mother took a little girl to a Blackpink concert and noticed the girls doing some sultry dance moves, she didn't scream and make a scene. She simply took her daughter and left. This case is different because Blackpink was at a personal event at their concert, so the mother had to respect that and simply leave if she felt uncomfortable. Had this event happened at Hwasa or Mamamoo's concert, I would not be talking about this right now. But this was at a university festival. The institution invited her, so if the parent board, the ones giving them money every year, is unhappy with what she did, they're allowed to speak up, and that doesn't make them the problem. Now for the rebuttal that not all adults want to be subjected to this behavior, the fact that people didn't even think about this is concerning to me. Those defending her won't stop claiming that students in universities do far worse, therefore what she did was okay. My response to that stupid argument is that the students who partake in these so-called worst activities do not do them in front of groups of people at televised events, and they most certainly do not do it in front of those who disapprove. Now granted, the reason why they don't do it is fear of being reported or punishment, but my point still stands. A lot of these activities happen in secret, away from those who do not like them. And as hard as it is to believe, there are other students who do not participate in these activities and would like to stay away from them. The lack of consideration for those people who do not want to witness that crudeness is a reminder of the levels of selfishness our generation carries. When invited to any event, one must be considerate of the place you're invited to. This is why K-pop idols covered up at KCON in Saudi Arabia. It was out of respect for the modesty and the customs of that nation. The same thing applies here. In an educational institution, at their event, have some decorum. Stop making gestures of you licking your kitty cat. That is a sexual activity that is literally done in private. Some people have never witnessed such things outside of the bedroom and they would like to keep it that way. What Hwasa did was selfish, and in my opinion, everyone defending her is coming from the exact same selfish stance. I cannot believe to a generation that considers themselves the most enlightened one of all time, I have to explain the difference between these two. Too many people use the argument that Hwasa has a sexy image in her defense, claiming that the institution knew what they were getting into by inviting her. Some went as far as to compare it to inviting Ice Spice or Cardi B to an event. Yeah, I had to take a breather for that one. Thinking that you can even compare Ice Spice to Hwasa is moronic. Ice Spice, Nicki Minaj, Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion are rappers with a sexual image. Their music and public image overall is centered around sexual activity. They rap about it, describe it in detail using crude and explicit language multiple times throughout their music. In other words, shit Hwasa doesn't do. Let me rephrase that. Shit Hwasa doesn't have the guts to do. Hwasa has a sexy image. She exudes sex appeal, and anyone can have that regardless of what they wear or what music they make. Even covered up from head to toe, Hwasa has great sex appeal. She never has and will never need clothes for that. The rappers you're comparing her to, everything from their physical bodies to the clothes that they wear to the sets in their music videos need to adhere to the sexual image. That's why 2 of the 4 rappers that I mentioned had their bodies literally altered to suit this specific image. Hwasa doesn't have a sexual image, and people need to stop using this half-witted argument like it has any real relevance. It only exposes the level of stupidity some of you possess. Talked a little bit about it in my shorts, but calling Hwasa unbothered might be the funniest thing that ever came out of this entire situation. Hwasa is a lot of things, but unbothered is definitely not one of them. Not only did the comments bother her, she actually cried at some point because of them. I would sympathize with her, except it's a little hard when she literally said at another event that she was more concerned about hitting a high note than getting sued. Now, I don't know about you, but that feels like a contradiction to me. Were you or were you not bothered by it? Or were you bothered by it before and now you're not? Not only that, but she chose to frame a whole song for her new comeback talking about loving her body because of it. Now, this is not to say that artists cannot or should not respond to hate, because I feel like someone in the comments is gonna be like that. So before you type, I personally think that there's a good number of artists whose greatest work has come from either responding to hate or using difficult times in their lives to channel creativity into their work. What I am saying is that you don't get to call a person who does that unbothered. When someone is unbothered, they don't care enough to do anything, including responding in song. Speaking of song, that's also something else I would like to touch on. Her response in that song, at least from where I'm standing, feels like she did not hear the criticism. She did not get it at all. It's like when you tell a K-pop stan you don't like a song and immediately they accuse you of hating a group. Nowhere did we say in the criticism that she isn't allowed to love her body or that her body is something she should be ashamed of. This is part of the reason why I don't like online hate, because apart from being barbaric, I noticed that when someone is so used to being hated for no reason, the one time when they do receive well-deserved criticism, they refuse to hear it and just bunch it with all the hate they've gotten prior to that moment. I believe that this is what's happening with her. People have hated on her so much that she thinks that the criticism from this incident is because we think her body is ugly or that she's unattractive. Now, I can't speak for everyone else, but personally, I think Hwasa is gorgeous, and how I feel about how she looks doesn't exempt her from deserved criticism. I think what she did was gross, and her attractiveness doesn't change that for me. This, by the way, also goes for everyone else at the event who made crude gestures that night, because everyone kept saying that there were male idols who did crude gestures and no one said anything about them. I don't know how true that is. I didn't watch anyone else from that event, but if it is true, then these male idols and just about anyone else who did crude gestures, it was gross. And I do not care how you look like. It doesn't change that for me. Now back to what I was saying. It's so ironic that she based her entire recent comeback from this controversy to tell us in the lyrics how little she cares about what people think of her. Except that she does. And as much as I adore her music, a lot of it is centered around the hate that she gets about her body and her looks. So to claim that she doesn't care when her whole career persona is based off of that is a little hypocritical. Again, I'm not saying that her career cannot be based on that. I'm just saying it doesn't make sense to tell us how little she cares when it's not a mystery that she does. To sign off this whole topic, I think on basic levels, self-love is great, but the way it's presented in K-pop is either shallow or hypocritical. Hardly is it ever done the right way, and that's part of the reason why I have a deep appreciation for BTS's concept so much. It's real and it's relatable. Hwasa's version of self-love, at least to me, has accomplished nothing but getting herself called a queen. And if that was her goal, then she's achieved it, and there's nothing wrong with that. But for her fans to claim that she single-handedly changed the industry is putting a crown on a head that doesn't fit. She may have paved the way for herself to be in this cutthroat industry that only cares about looks, and she may have created herself a loyal fan base, but this industry is still just as obsessed with looks as they were before she was a thing. And if I may be bold, I think it's actually so much worse now. This whole incident also taught me that those defending her on the basis of the self-love argument have proven that this movement has evolved into something incredibly selfish, and that respect and decorum are of little importance. And finally, for those who think anyone criticizing Hwasa is just old-fashioned or mean or misogynistic, please get over yourself. You can like and respect someone without kissing their asses and approving of every little thing that they do. We don't all hate Hwasa, and respecting decorum and social cues doesn't mean we're pandering to the patriarchy. We just don't like what she did, like some of y'all don't like mint chocolate ice cream. Doesn't make us bad people.